Go near and join thyself to this chariot.
Yes.
And Philip ran Peter
Yes.
and had him read.
Had him do what? They actually say, I don't know whether you missed it. They say, as he sat in his chariot, he was reading from the prophet Isaiah. As he sat in his chariot, he was reading from the prophet Isaiah. They even tell you what he was reading. Can you imagine how important our people were at the time that they even tell you, put you in the Bible and tell you what he was reading? You know, they tell you, they read there. It's there. And he says, understand thou what I read? You know, this is Philip looking for a lift now. He doesn't know what can I do? You know, he says, okay, do you understand what you're reading? Yeah. Uh-huh.
And he said, how can I expect someone should guide me?
Now he says, oh, how can I understand unless somebody guides me? He's a humble person. Uh-huh.
And he desired Philip that he would come up. And
so he says, come up and sit with me. You know, Philip is running. Do you understand what you're reading? Huh? You understand? Then he says, okay, come and sit with me now. Yeah? Now, he was reading. They tell you what he was reading. Read.
The place of the scripture which he read like this.
Uh-huh.
He was led as a sheep to the slaughter.
Like a lamb.
Like a lamb dumb before his
Sharers. Stop there. So, he says, he was led like sheep before the slaughter. Like a lamb before its sharers. This is us. This is us. We're just like sheep about to be slaughtered. We're just there before our sharers. People are ganging up looking at Africa. You've got to understand this. When you look at the population of Belgium, it has 986 people per square mile. When you look at the population of Angola, it has 11 people per square mile. But what is the biggest institution in Angola? That's okay. Family planning. And you know what they mean by that? It's not that you should provide for your family and make sure they have enough in terms of education, in terms of food, in terms of nourishment, that they learn moral laws, that you teach like we used to teach in ancient time when a father says to his son or his daughter, I will teach you the law, I'll teach you a profession, I'll get you a profession, and I'll get you a wife or a husband. No! They just want you to reduce your population. That's what they mean family planning. Like a lamb that is before its sharers. We are there, man. Everything is being taken away. That's why you can't even take a kilo of diamond from Congo. That is why we can't even sit on the Security Council. You know, they talk about the United Nations. But you know what that means? The United Nations, they have what they call a General Assembly. All people assemble like we've assembled. Then they start, in their best clothes. Ambassador from Nigeria. This man took my land. Okay, you ambassador from Sudan. Uganda invaded me. Oh, you from Ethiopia. Ogaden did this. They all quarrel. They assemble. That's the General Assembly. But the real decisions are taken by the Security Council. And you can't get there. And some of them have even veto powers. What's the point of all assembling 200 and so nations, and then one nation can say, I don't want to listen to you. But when they address it as the United Nations, we look at it as the United Nations. We are just like a lamb before our sharers. That's why anything they want to promote, any single thing, they do it. That's why we are going for Miss Uganda. That is why we are going for short skirts, really short. Short. When you go to buy blouses or a shirt, you buy one that exposes your breast. No? Cleavage all torn out like this. Walk down the street, babies begin crying. They think it's feeding time. They see a breast and say, oh. That's right. Because the baby doesn't know that you are just doing it to show what you've got. The baby says, I'm hungry, and that looks like a good breast, man. Tasolo. What kind? You know, they have trousers that they call quarter trouser. Now, what person would go to buy a trouser and buy a quarter one of it? What kind of person? Are you going to go back for another quarter? Give me a quarter trouser. I mean, you're savage. I want a quarter trouser. You know what? Because you don't know what it means to be a woman. Just like we don't know what it means to be a man. Because we don't know, we think that maybe being a woman is because you've got a long neck. So if you have a long neck, every time you see people, you try to elongate it like this. Yeah. Maybe you think it's because you've got, a behind. So you want to show it so that people don't miss it. Now you think maybe you are short, so people don't see you. So you wear high-heeled shoes. Like someone on a catwalk. Do you know what a catwalk is? You know what a catwalk? Really know what a catwalk is. You know, when you see a cat, when it is on heat, when the cat is on heat, it rises like this and raises it behind to indicate to males that it is ready to mate. That is why when they put you there in the fashion, they want you to do the same on your catwalk. So we have lost ourselves in a European wilderness. We don't know what it means to be a woman. You are not a man. You can't even be one. Because you have to know that there is such an institution called man. And you have to define it. And once you've defined it, you have to be one. To be a man, first you have to be a protector. That doesn't mean your wife is weak, jump off a chair when she sees a mouse. No! But you have to be a protector. You can't hear an alarm somewhere and say, oh, I'm not going there. No, there could be some big thief there with a big knife. That is not a man. You have to protect yourself, protect your family, protect your community. It doesn't mean physical protection, although sometimes it involves that. It has to mean protection of your community, protection of your language, protection of your knowledge, protection of your teachers, protection of your institution. Some of you just want to destroy. You say, you're falling there, you don't care. You are not a man. You have to be a provider. You have to provide. You have to provide the knowledge. You have to provide the wealth. You have to provide all these things. Then you have to be somebody that is anchored in your community. You have to play a role in your community. You can't be like the European who says, I think, therefore I am. That's the European concept. If I think, everything is me. I'm just going to do what pleases me. I'm just for what is mine. No, I didn't like that. I'm not going there with you. That's the European. I'm going there with you. No, that's not me. That's not me. That's not me. I want to know the real me. I want you to really know who real me. That's not African. In Africa, the concept is I am because we are. And because we are, therefore I am. That is our concept. I am nothing outside my community. I'm nothing outside my relationship with you. That is what anchors me. That's what makes me a man. So to be a man, you have to have respect for your species half, i.e. the female. You can't be a man when you are saying to your wife, stop boring me. You can't be a man like that. You can't be a man saying, okay, let me just buy myself clothes, then I buy yours next week. You can't be a man saying, let me first get my freedom, then I'll free you. You can't be a man saying, let me first, take all the men to school, then after they've gone to school, I'll take the women. That's not men. Most of the time, Maleness is determined in terms of genitalia. But animals have got them too. A chimpanzee has the same thing that human has. So is a chimpanzee a man? It can't be a genitalia thing. Most of the time, maleness is determined in terms of female contest, running through women like you're running through a train. That was not in Africa. You couldn't do it. And if we had stuck on our cultural core, I remember I was speaking in one place, somewhere in the wilderness of America, and everybody was, I spoke after this very exciting speaker, and everybody was sleeping. So I looked at them and I said, we need to go back to the days of Abraham. Because it says Abraham knew Sarah, and after 2 years he knew her again. So you must have sex once every 2 years. And everybody woke up. The cameraman, it started like that. They said, once every 2 years. But in Africa, sex was not used for recreation. No. It was used for procreation. And you know what? Among this nation that is surrounded by South Africa, which one is this? Swaziland. They have a ceremony where at a certain age, all women have to go out, and the king or some of the men choose a bride. And that bride must be somebody who has not slept with a man before marriage. I know most of you passed that test, most of you in this room. I have a lot of expectations in you. I have a lot of high hopes in you. Don't let me down now. But do you know, if we had really stuck some of these things, do you know how much discipline it would have instilled on us? Do you know that in Africa you didn't choose a woman because she was beautiful? Do you know you didn't choose a woman because she was tall? Do you know in Africa every woman got a man, and you didn't even have to see a man before? You didn't even have to see a woman before you got married to them? Do you know that? Let me tell you this today. The I love you marriage is a total European invention, and it doesn't work. I love you marriage? It doesn't work at all. I love him, man. I like his eyes. Who doesn't have eyes? How can you be so silly? I like his smile. How can you like somebody just because they smile? What are you? You're just a sadist? You came from a broken home where everybody was crying? You write all these letters, I like your eyes. No, when I hear your voice. What do you mean when you hear my voice? Is my voice similar to anybody else's? In Africa, they didn't do that. They said, you're a man? Yes. Are you of marriageable age? Yes. Can you prove you're a man? Yes. Have you got a house? I've got one. Can you work? Yes. Good character? Yes. Is there any disease in your family? Like all these diseases? Let's check somebody to find out. And then they went and did the same to the woman. And until that day, you didn't know what she looked like. Now you might sit there, you women, and criticize that and say, but nangi mutwala until you. But you know what? It worked to protect you. Because it means you didn't have to get a hustler. You didn't go out to hustle. When I'm in Kampala, the majority of the professional women I have seen are people who can't stay in a relationship. They can't. They are always complaining about this man. Oh, he doesn't want to work. Oh, he wants me to do this. All these complaints. Most women now spend their 90% of their time thinking about men, not thinking about work. And most of the young men are going that direction. And woe upon that nation. In Africa, we had sorted out all these things, man. Over a long period of time, we say, okay, you. Right. Don't worry, you just stay there today. But tomorrow, I'll get your husband. That's done. And you could laugh at it, but they did work. There was no divorce in Africa. Because if something happened, your mother would be there saying, what is happening? Your uncle would be standing there saying, what is happening? You didn't marry a man. No, two families came together to make that institution work. So that there was a buffer. All the things we had thought about. So when we think about ethics, when we think about our cultural core, we have to put it in perspective. In Africa, we had developed a high technical civilization around the Nile Valley. We had developed an education system that trained people in what was called the mystery system of learning, where people studied 360 degrees of knowledge for 36 years. 36 years, divided into 3 stages, each stage lasting 12 years. Now listen to this. And this is from a book called Story and Legacy by George James. Page 30 in Story and Legacy is the foundation of the spiritual system that existed in Africa. The 10 principles of spiritual growth. 10 principles. And I want you to write this down. And I want you to pin them on your wall. And I want you to show them to Matembe or whenever they're telling you about ethics. Say, do you know the 10 principles of spiritual growth? I want you to give these 10 principles of spiritual growth to your boyfriend. When a man comes and starts making advances on you, he says, what is principle number 3? When he answers well, say, okay, you answered well, but what is principle number 4? Principle number 1, it was called control of thought. Control of thought. Control of thought was number 1. You've done that? Number 2, control of action. And all these principles were interrelated. Before any action, you have to have a thought. The action cannot precede the thought. And most of our time, our actions follow the thought. It's like, imagine if I was coming down now to give a lecture here. And I meet somebody crossing the road. And he has a wheelbarrow and he's moving slowly. And I'm saying, get out of the door, I can knock you down. And he leaves the wheelbarrow there. And I want to show that I have a car and I crash into it. And my tail light gets broken and everything. I wouldn't make it here. I'd have a bill of 300,000 to pay. I have acted before what? Before thought. So in Africa it was control of thought, control of action. Number 3 was called steadfastness of purpose. Steadfastness of purpose. Steady fast. From the word steady fast. Steadfastness of purpose. Steadfastness of purpose. You've got that one. What is steadfastness of purpose? When you have a purpose, and that is linked to principle number 5, which I'll give you. I mentioned principle number 4 and 5, and then I'll explain that. Number 4 was commitment to higher ideals. Commitment to higher ideals. That is what we are not doing at universities. That is what we are not doing in our own families. We are just happy to get a job. We're just happy to get paid. You just happen to evaluate ourselves on the clothes we wear or the car we drive. That is not a higher ideal. We ever heard of a nation where just people like somebody because he drives a good car? We ever heard of a mighty people? You know, we can't be petty. A mighty people have nothing to do with petty history. These are just petty histories. Liking a man because he has a big house. Liking a woman because she has a job where she gets a salary. We have to commit ourselves to higher ideas. We have to conceive big things and aim at achieving them. And it has to be done at a university because this is the time when you have time to think. Miss this opportunity, you'll never get it. All this time you're wasting, sitting around Rugambo. You know, did you see the clothes he was wearing? It's not higher idea. You have to commit yourself to higher idea. Number 5 is evidence of having a mission in life. Evidence of having a mission in life. It is sometimes amazing that you could ask somebody, what do you want to do? And they say to you, oh, you know what? I want to be a teacher. But I didn't get the best grade, I'm going to become an accountant. When he doesn't get a job there, he doesn't want to be an accountant, he's going to be a carpenter. It can't work like that. Some of you haven't even decided what you want to be now. If I asked you what you want to be, you say, I don't know. You know, when I finish, I may go into tourism. I may go into radio. Evidence of having a mission in life. I mentioned before that in Africa, a father told his son or his daughter that I will teach you the law, communal law, national law. I will give you a trade, and I'll get you a wife or a husband. Those 3 things. You committed your son or daughter to a trade at an early age. You have to know what is your mission in life, what you want to do. You have to start conceiving it now, and you have to aim at achieving it within your lifetime. But it has to be higher idea. Don't just say, I want to start a shop that sells shoes. Who cares? Whoever heard of the people that became great by selling shoes? Yeah. Maybe one that makes shoes, that gets all these cows and goats that we eat and transforms them into something that people can wear. It has to be an idea. It has to relate to your community so that you protect your community against sharks. You protect your language against extinction. Evidence of having a mission in your life. If you want to teach, have conceived it by now. Whatever you want to do, there has to be evidence of that. If I meet you and say, what are you? You have to be able to say, I'm a man, but I'm also a man who is going to do this for my nation or for my home or for my community. But you can't just walk like this. You don't know where you're going. You don't have a mission. You just at the university because you want to get a degree. What for? What do you want to get a degree for? If you want to go and sell shoes, you can do that without a degree. You don't need it. If you want to be a receptionist in some high profile, whatever, you can do that. You have to have evidence of having a mission in life. Number 6 was commitment to spiritual life. Most of the time, when we talk about spiritual, most of you think about religion. There is a difference between religion and spirituality. There is a difference. In fact, Professor Kanyandago was telling me yesterday, Jesus didn't start a religion. He wasn't a Christian. Jesus, if he came today, he'd see all this and say, what are they doing? He'd say, oh, they're worshiping you. You don't know about them? You know, and he would ask these nuns and say, you know, what are you? He said, well, I'm just your servant. I've just dedicated my life to you. He said, what are you? He said, I belong to the Catholic Church. He said, I don't know about the Catholic Church. What Catholic Church? Jesus did not have a religion. Religion was set up long afterwards as an institution to galvanize the spiritual energy to see if they could make it work for God or establish God's kingdom. It had nothing to do with spirituality. It is just a division of labor and structure and religion, to remind people that there is higher ideals to work for. But Jesus didn't know nothing about that. In fact, it was set up long after himself and the apostles had died. The church, it actually started in Africa. The church, the Christian church started here in Africa. All the foundations of the Christian church were laid in Africa, not in Europe. Monastic life started in Africa. Ponchemius, the catechism was developed in Africa. The laws, the canons of the church by Augustine are started here in Africa. All those started. Hermetic life of a hermit, here in Africa. Christianity was in Africa for 300 years before African people took it to Europe. 325 AD at the Council of Nicaea by 2 African divines, Arius and Origen. And they argued with Europeans about different concepts, and it divided the church for 200 years, from the Council of Nicaea to the Council of Chalcedon. They didn't know it in Europe. In Europe, they were quite happy to worship several gods. One of the German gods was called Virar. He demanded every day that men shave their beard with blood of their enemies. Virar. These views that we are talking about, they were nothing but mere homosexuals. Sleeping with men, drinking each other's blood, and caning their wives 46 times. When the African people came with peace, love, torment, they said, what are you talking about? It created a crisis in Europe. At that time, the head of the Catholic Church was based in Cluny, in France, with a big cathedral. Pope Urban had a big problem because you had knights who wanted to be Christian, but their job was to kill people every day. If they killed 5 people, it would be a bad day. They'd come back with an axe, telling their wife it was horrible today. I only killed 5 people. There was a man who just escaped. I cut his ankle, but he just left. This is true. It is true. So when the Pope was asked by Alexis, who was the king of governing Constantinople, that the Saracens, the Arabs, had invaded Turkey, and they had forced most of the Christians into Islam, the Pope said, okay, I have seen an opportunity. Jesus didn't say it was wrong to kill. No, Jesus said it was wrong to kill Christians. But it is less sinful if you kill people who are not Christians. In fact, he says your sins would be rescinded. They will be forgiven here and even in heaven. This is all what happened. But Christianity started here. So when we are talking about spirituality, it's commitment to the transcendental, the highest form of human values. That's what I mean by spirituality. The highest form of human values. Look for the highest form of human value, and that is spiritual. If a person is living like that, a person who gets people who have no food and feeds them, even at the expense of himself getting hungry, is living a spiritual life. A person who gets a little salary, or no salary at all, to come and teach other people so that they can do something with their life, he's a spiritual person. Spirituality is only measured in one gauge. 1, not 2, not 3. 1, service. Spirituality is gauged by service. Serve God so that your days will be elongated. Serve the elders so they teach you wisdom. Serve your community so that your life may be anchored on a stronger foundation. Service. That's how we take a spiritual life. In Africa, you are not what you say you are. You are what you do. You are what you do. These things of having an electric engineer that sleeps in darkness is European modern day education system. How can you be an electric engineer? And when I come to your home, you have a tiny little lamp. Smoke dripping in your eyes. And what did you study? I actually studied electric engineering. I'm a big expert in electricity. You are in darkness. Now you tell me what you know about life? How can you explain that? You couldn't do that in Africa. If you said, what do you do? I'm a wood carver. This is what I have carved. I am an artist. This is what I do. Art functional. You could not stand there and say, I'm a highway engineer. And then we have a stick beating dew going to your house. What did you study? I studied highway engineering. It would be too big for Uganda. But that's what I studied. You're nothing but a faith. You can't be a teacher if you don't teach. You have to teach in order to be a teacher. If you don't teach, you're not a teacher. You're not what you say you are. You are what you do. And we need to get that ethics, that work ethic of determining what a person is by what they do. Most of the time, I don't want to be told I have a degree, or to be called Dr. This. No. Because you know why? people use that because they haven't done anything. They use it. I'm a physician. The village has hepatitis. I'm just waiting for it from China. Now, what can you say? You studied, what did you study? Oh, I actually studied medicine. I studied in India, and then I went to London. And they write it on their practice. Be something London. So that when you see it. Why? Because they have nothing to show. Because if I was in a village with you and there was hepatitis, I'd get it and pour it on you. You studied medicine, okay, now cure yourself. Physician, heal thyself. What about physicians of other nations? What do? When AIDS come, they all stand around, say, oh, AIDS, we don't know what to do. We don't even know where it came from. It's not even important. But you told us you are qualified. You are in virology. You study epidemiology. What are you here for, man? What did you say? I studied pharmacology. Studied pharmacology? Yeah. They say, oh. Be something London. So that when you see it. Why? Because they have nothing to show. Because if I was in a village with you and there was hepatitis, I'd get it and pour it on you. You studied medicine, okay, now cure yourself. Physician, heal thyself. What about physicians of other nations? What do? When AIDS come, they all stand around, say, oh, AIDS, we don't know what to do. We don't even know where it came from. It's not even important. But you told us you are qualified. You are in virology. You study epidemiology. What are you here for, man? What did you say? I studied pharmacology. Studied pharmacology? Yeah. They say, oh, come and meet my friend. He's a doctor. No, I don't want you to tell me. I want you to show me. Show me what kind of physician he is. Because I know other physicians who didn't study like you studied on government money, who will see you with a broken arm and they attempt to do something about it. And they be able to tell a facial analysis. They say your kidney are wrong, I can see it in your eyes. I know people who you say, I have a heartburn, and they say you are going to give birth to a baby girl with a lot of hair. I know people who do this. Let me tell you this. My mother, if you are giving birth to boys, he can change the sex of the children before conception, and you give birth to a girl. He can do that. She can do that. Now, for a long time, I didn't understand until I went in biology and genetics and found that it's actually simple. It's increasing the amount of protein in the chromosome. And you've done it. The Y and I think the X, too much protein of one gives you a boy, and too much protein in the other gives you, less protein in the other gives you a girl. So I went there, I went somewhere and I was trying to impress them with what my mother does. And I thought they would never understand it. No, they said, no, we can understand that. Because this is it. Now, if I have somebody like this and you want to impress me that you're a farmer, all you know is to look at the formulas and mix this with the other and mix this with that and say me I'm a pharmacist. I don't respect you. You can go to heaven and stay there. We need to demand of our children, and we need to demand of those who make claims that they are something. We need to demand of them the impossible. If not the impossible, we need to demand of them that they do for us what other people do for their own nations. When there's an epidemic in America, what do you think the physicians do? They all get together to look for how to contain that. But our people then start thinking of going to Geneva. Our people start thinking of going to America. Now, I thought you studied the same thing that this person studied. If you didn't study the same thing, let's take you there so you study. You have to, do you see what I'm saying? Okay, I studied pharmacology. He also studied pharmacology. The only difference is that he can make his own medicine, and I only read what he has written. How is that possible now? Who wants to know? Why can't we bring him to come and do his work here? Most of these people just study to work for the Chinese. The Chinese make the medicine, and all we do is just to read what the Chinese have written. And we pride ourselves that I'm a physician. No, I'm not impressed. So we are what we are, and we're on the sixth principle of spiritual growth. That is, I was talking about spirituality. I said the highest form of human values. Number seven is freedom from resentment. Freedom from resentment. And it adds, especially under great persecution and wrong. Freedom from resentment, especially under great persecution and wrong. This is very profound. Freedom from resentment. Do you know what that means? Most times, when people see me speak, they come to me and say, "Do you hate white people?" I said to them, "You know what? I don't even have the time to do that. It would take me so much time that I don't want to devote it to any other people but my own. I have no hate in my blood, because hate would eat me. It would consume me. It would divert me from what I have to know and what I have to do. I don't have that. Because I have freedom from resentment. I could start there plotting to drive every European into the sea. But what would that do? Why would if I drove 15 Europeans away out of Uganda, maybe another European is coming. What would that do? I would rather develop a system that can enable you control your economy so that you are secure enough and it doesn't matter whether a European comes or not. He comes in here on your own terms. That's why I said powerful people have nothing to do with petty history. So we have to have that freedom from resentment. We have to know what we came from. We have to know what other people did to us. But you know what? It's not so much what they have done to us. It is what we are doing to each other. And what we will do, what we will do for ourselves, what other people have done for their nations. That is what is critical. What is critical is, will we do for ourselves what other people have done for their nations? Will we be inspired by the great injustices done to us to say, let us set right that what was wronged. Let us repair that which is damaged. Let us pick a nation that is upside down and restore it right side up. Shall we be inspired by the injustices done to us? That's why we have to have no freedom from resentment, especially under great persecution and wrong. I'm telling you, somebody will come and quarrel with you before your exam. You could be one of the best brain scientists. You could be one of the best sociologists. Maybe you are going to solve out all these problems of adult African men sexually molesting their young children, their daughters. Now, I've heard that somewhere. I have lived in a country where men and women just molest their children, standard practice. And it only gets reported when a child gets tired of it. But I had never heard it in Africa. An adult, 70-year-old, grabs a child of 6 and rapes them. This is unbelievable, man. Where have we learned all these ideas from? Who can stand up and say that when you are growing up, or when your mother was growing up, that there was that incident? It was unbelievable. But it's there. Maybe you are the person who is going to help us with that. But you could be just about to do your exam, and this person comes your way, throws water in your face, and calls you names. Now, it is natural to self-defend yourself. So you start fighting, the dresses get torn, or trousers get down, and you take into the disciplinary committee. Even if they give you a chance, your mind is not there. You have missed freedom from resentment, especially when you are being persecuted. My teacher used to say to me, that is the time when you have to be at your wisest. As all these people close up on African people, this is the time when we have to be at our wisest. We can't be fools, getting guns and going to shoot people. They've got bigger guns than you've got. We have to have that freedom from resentment, particularly under great persecution and wrong. That is why I have never told anybody to go and throw a stone at a European. I want you to know he took us into slavery. And even though the European you are looking at is not that person who did it, but nevertheless he's a beneficiary of the system that robbed the wealth out of Africa and went to develop Holland and Germany and Poland and America. And until reparation is paid, there shall be no peace between us. You're laughing, you think it's a joke. It's not. There'll be no peace. There was this Indian chief. I was listening to him this morning. He was being hanged when Christopher Columbus went to the Americas, because they said he was a savage and everything, and he had led a rebellion. And when they were hanging him, they said, there is a priest, he has come, and he wants you to prepare your soul so he goes to heaven. And this Indian chief says, this heaven, what is it? They say it's a beautiful place, peace, no working hard, and all your ancestors will be there. He says, I want to go. And the priest came, and he was reciting a few prayers. And just as he was about to begin, the chief says, hey, just a minute. These people who are hanging me, are they also going to heaven? And the priest says, yes, they may even arrive there before you. He says, I don't want to go. I don't want to go to that heaven. We have to demand collectively what is ours. All other nations were compensated for injustices done to them. European people came to Africa on their own accord. They had developed a slavery system in Europe that even enslaved Europeans. White people enslaved white people before they enslaved us. White people murdered white people before they murdered us. White people destroyed their own nations before they destroyed ours. So I want you to be clear on this. They came, we didn't invite them. We didn't tell them to come with boats. We didn't develop those plantations in Brazil, in the Caribbean, in America. I know they are telling you these theories about African chiefs. African chiefs had nothing to do with it. They were just pawns, like these leaders that you see here today, signing agreements, IMF. You think they write those agreements? You think those agreements are designed by our lawyers in Kampala? They find a finalized document. That's why they just go to sign. They don't go to read and appraise. No. They go to put their signature on a dotted line. That's what they do. The governor of Bank of Uganda has to be approved in New York before he becomes a governor here. The Minister of Finance is chosen in America. He's not chosen in Uganda. You've got to know these facts. You can't blame Museveni. You can't say he's an African chief. No! These African chiefs, in the end, what happens to them? What happened to Sheshekoko in Congo? After they finished with the Koko, they sold Koko. They left him to be destroyed. They didn't care because his job was already performed. These African chiefs, after time, they were also sold as slaves. They were the last to jump on that slave boat. Anyway, freedom from resentment. Number 8 is confidence in one's own ability to learn. Confidence in one's own ability to learn. Confidence. One's own ability to learn. That is profound. Because you know what? Most of the time When you go to Europe, ask people who have been there. A European is in a train, is holding a book. The train is shaking, he's reading. When he gets in his office, the moment he gets a chance, he's reading a book. They read about anything. He has a library just near his home, and he's a member of that library. He has a video library, audio library. They have radio stations that specialize in documentaries. They have satellite television that specializes in documentaries. They have travel programs. Before he comes to Uganda, he has seen thousands of programs on Uganda. A European is investing in knowledge every day. When he goes to university, he goes there to read every book and pick every brain. How many books have you read? You pride yourself in how many genes you've got and how they hold you so close. You pride yourself in how many high-heeled shoes, how many nicely clean shoes you've got. How many books would I find in your room if I came there? How many? Because if you are going to get knowledge, you have to search for it. That is why that book in John chapter 8 verse 32 is profound. He says, seek ye the truth, because the truth will set you free. Jesus didn't say seek me, seek the Protestant church. He said seek ye the truth. Prophet Muhammad said seek ye knowledge from the cradle to the grave, which means not all knowledge is in the Quran. So, you have to read. You have to seek knowledge. You have to have confidence in your own ability to learn. Most of the time people come to me and say, oh, you know, how did you get all these things? How do you remember all these years? How do you, if you feel so deep about something, you remember it. Can you forget the amount of money that is in your pocket? Can you? Or that you kept in your room? Even after months, when you start, you know you left 20,000 there and it was in 1,000 shillings. Because it matters to you. You can't forget your dress if somebody stole it. You saw somebody dress, I would say that used to be my dress. Why? Because you felt so deep about it. Now, if somebody is telling me about Abi Abdillah, he was a commander of the African troops, the last troops to leave the Moors in Spain, to leave Spain. He didn't fight very hard to defend the citadels of Alhambra. And his mother, called Aisha, said to him, whip like a woman for what you couldn't defend like a man. I can't forget that. Because my own struggle is related to that. So that's what I want to tell you. You have to have evidence of having a mission. You have to have a confidence in one's own ability to learn. I've got two more and then we'll break for something, I think. Confidence in one's own ability to learn. Number 9 is confidence in the power of a teacher or a master. Confidence in the power of a teacher or a master. You have to have confidence. What does this confidence mean, or what does it entail? First of all, you have to establish that every person has something to teach. Do you know that mad people think they are the only sane people on earth? Mad people. I remember my sister was telling me this story. And he said there was a mad person. They shouldn't really be called mad. We are the people that are mad. Mad actually is the philosophy that they use to develop the nuclear weapon. The nuclear weapon is based on the principle of MAD, which means mutually assured destruction. Mutually assured destruction. Because Russia would destroy America, America would destroy Russia, or both of them would destroy the world. Mutually assured destruction. Now, these mad people, whom they say they have a behavior problem or a character disorder or whatever, one mad person went and found another mad person on the street. And he looked at them and he was saying some silly things and he wasn't energetic or dynamic. And he said, in Nyankore, he said, Tena Triyaba Guira, Kongeria Nyankarta Mamani. Which means we are all mad, but at least I invested in my own madness. Yeah. I was better at developing my own madness than this other person. Now, when we say, you know, that even that person can teach something, the mad people think they are the only sane people. I don't know whether you study in your psychology the philosophy, the principle of the id, the superego, you know, the id, you know, and the unconsciousness, and how when you are interpreting dreams, when you dream, you know, your ego and the id, like the ego is your public relations. Okay, what I'll do is I just make a few other remarks, and then I open the floor, and while you're asking me questions and I'm answering them, I will be setting up some slides. I brought some slides to show you. Unfortunately, my main collection was in Mbarara, so I brought the one I have in Kampala, but that's neither here nor there. Now, I was telling you about the origin of humanity in Africa, and I was telling you about how significant it is that we know where we came from. But listen to this. In 1911, Europeans, anxious at not having ancient roots, they got ancient bones. They put them in a chest in Surrey, in England. They buried it, and then they discovered it. And they called it the Piltdown Man. They said the Piltdown Man was the missing link between the old or the man of ancient time and modern man. And that he was born in England, he was tall, blue-eyed, white skin, and they started teaching from 1911 that humanity at the stage of Homo sapiens sapien started in Europe, particularly in England. The Piltdown Man. Write it down. Piltdown. Piltdown. Sometimes it's called Piltdown. Now, so everyone, for over 40 years, every single person who studied about the origin of humanity would have known that white people, that humanity might have started in Africa, but at the stage of Homo sapiens sapien, they started in Europe. Now, this is the picture of the Piltdown Man. That's what he is supposed to have looked like. You can see, he has long cheekbones of a European. He had long hair like the one you are fighting for, and all this everything. Now, listen to this. In 1954, a white scholar who happened to be Jewish, named Oakley, he took the two bones, the two pieces of the jaws, and tested to find the amount of cranium that existed to see if the creature belonged to the same fossil. He found that it was a fake, that it had been done with the juxtaposition of a monkey, or jawbone of a monkey, with that of a modern human. Oakley, in unraveling the myth of the Piltdown Man, had laid to rest the theory of pre-sapiens in Europe before Africans. What am I saying? I'm saying Europeans had pinned all their hopes on this man. They had said, with this Piltdown Man, we were the first Homo sapiens sapien, and we were first in Europe. But about 40,000 years before, there had been African people in Europe known as Gromoldi. Now, this Piltdown Man was supposed to be 700,000 years, and these Africans in Europe were 40,000. So they were saying, we can't talk about age. I'm talking about humanity at 700,000. Your African here was only 40,000. But the excellent forger, who was a high scientist named Lord Dawson, he had got a modern skeleton of a man, juxtaposed it on the jawbone of a monkey, buried it in a river in Surrey, in England, and called all the people, including cameras of the time, to say, look at the original human being. Yeah? And he stands. So this is the book now called Unraveling the Piltdown. And at the back it says, in 1913, an amateur fossil hunter and antiquarian named Charles Dawson found in a grave in Pilt, England, parts of a skull of an entirely new species of pre-human. The discovery, soon known as the Piltdown Man, caused headlines worldwide, trumpeting the claim that the evolutionary missing link between ape and man had been found. Controversy quickly arose, with many scientists charging that the jaw and the cranium were not related and must have come from two different creatures, an ancient man and an ancient ape. But the believers prevailed for 40 years. Piltdown Man held his place, though a troubled place, in the fast developing evolutionary science. So, for 40 years, they deceived the whole world that humanity started where? The original European was black. Darker than you and me. In fact, compared to him, you might be even called white people. He was in Europe 40,000 years. Listen to this. He was in Europe 40,000 years ago. The original. He was called Gromoldi, the black Gromoldi. During that time, Europe was invaded by the Ice Age. As the Ice Age invaded, some of the Africans ran coming back. Some went into the caves. Now, you've got to understand why European people are fascinated with tall people. The ice was a mile thick. So if you went to hunt and you put your leg in there, you could not come back, particularly if you are short. Up to today, there is ice in Europe that comes and covers even a car. They have snow plows. They get salt and put it in the middle of the roads. So these Africans that went in the caves, they underwent a change of skin. What they call the phenotype. Phenotype adaptation and genotype adaptation. In Ankole, I don't know whether they have it in Uganda, when a bride is getting married, they get the bride and put them away from the sun. Like we told Sika. And then they say what? We are correct. We are chombiri. What is that of chombiri? Is to change and become light-skinned. Why? Because you have sheltered this person away from the sun. But what we know happened, we don't know precisely what happened. But they underwent a genetic mutation in those caves and hillsides. When they emerged as white people. But they were darker than you and I. The remains of these black people are now in the Museum of Monaco, near the town of Monte Carlo. The black Gromoldi. The first Indian was black. It was called Dravidian. Up to now, the largest population of African people outside Africa is not in Brazil, that has 130 million, it's in India. 200 million African people live in India. In Laos, in Cambodia, in Vietnam, in Pakistan, Afghanistan. Afghanistan, they have the mountains called Indo-Kush mountains. What do they call them, Indo-Kush? Kush is the name for Ethiopia. The Ethiopian armies extended up to China. The first Chinese dynasty was built by Ethiopians. So it's called the Zheng dynasty in China. The Japanese were black people. They were called Avidas. Those that replaced the Avidas were called Masava Negroes. That's why you see Japanese names are like your names. Takahara, Yampara, Nakamura. Who of you really doesn't know Kota, Toyota, Ngo Toyota, Toyota? Who doesn't know? These are African names. Eh? And language. You know what happens to language when people move? It just changes slightly. Some words become different. Like they call eggs in Japan, tamanegi. Now I don't know what. I don't know whether you have a word like that here, but so a few days ago we had a meeting of East African broadcasters, and we had Kikuyu. So In the evening, I brought all these broadcasters with their suits and I put them down. And I told them each to sing a song from their home. So we sang a song. And then it was the turn of the guy from Chikuyu land. And he said, Iganar mwe mwe katuri mwe mwe. And I said, what are you singing? He says, I'm saying 101 akatonye zemwe. And I said, Igana, that's our language. You stole our language. And he said, no, that's my language. But Chikuyu, I said the Nyindo, he said the Nyindo. Emwe, imwe, ibiri, isatu. That is Chikuyu. So as people move this language, when you go to Botswana, this Echinyaboya, Echidaboya, it's the same thing. So when we say these languages started as one language, when we say the first Japanese were African people, it's up to you. The onus is on you. When you go to Japan or when you meet a Japanese, to try to look for relationships between these languages. But you approach them from the premise of the fact that the Japanese came from here. They were actually Twa people. The Twa traveled from Rwenzori. They moved this area. They settled at the foothills of the this Happy River, what you call the Nile now. The Basoga speak the same language as the Twa, Abakunju. If there's a Msoga, you look for a Msoga in your school and pair him with a Mkonjo, and you exchange the language. You do these experiments. You have got to understand, what we are able to do is just lay a foundation. All we succeed in doing is lay a foundation for research that you must carry out. I am not now going to sit down and write a paper about the interrelationship between Rusoga and Rukonjo. You have to do that. But I'm telling you, you will find Basoga, Basamia, Bagwere, it's all Rukonjo. Even the dance is just about the same. Omkazi Omkali will be the same Mkazi over there. The words will be precisely the same. Because why? Because the original people moved from that area or through here, settled at the foothills of the Nile, then moved upwards, settled in Ethiopia. Some took boats and ended up in all these islands.